So there isn't even an option to offer to pay the buyer's agent commission in this new 2024 California listing agreement document. I'm Andrew Gavin. I'm a licensed lender here in California, and I sell real estate in San Diego. Today, I want to talk about this new listing agreement that's coming out. This is the document that if you plan to sell your house, when you pick your agent, they're going to bring this document and they're going to go through this. The things that I want to focus on, though, are the commission changes, which are probably the most important to you as well, because that comes down to how much you're going to pay your agent and anybody else when you sell your property. Now, the old document had two options, or it had two places where they talked about commissions. One, how much you were going to pay your agent or their brokerage, and then how much you were going to offer to compensate the broker or the agent that brought you a buyer. Those two would be totaled together and you would pay that full amount to your broker. So the typical way this works is you would agree to pay your broker, the listing agent, 2 or 3%, and then they would say, how much do you want to offer the buyer's agent? And you would note that, let's say it's 2 or 3%. You would take those two together, 2 and 3, 2 and 2, 3 and 3, get 4, 5, or 6. And that's how that would work out. The new changes, what's coming on this document, is they have removed any language at all that references the buyer or the buyer's broker, because California does not expect you to pay that any longer. The agents that you interview, the listing agents, are going to suggest that you offer compensation. And they're going to suggest because they're going to tell you every other seller is doing it. And if you don't offer compensation to the buy side, buyers might not come and see your house. You might not get as much attention for your listing. Now, in my opinion, offering compensation to the buyer or the buyer's broker makes a lot of sense in the right perspective. So, as I said, this document does not reference buyer's commission anywhere. That's an important thing to note as a seller, because this is a brand new document post-NAR settlement that California Association of Realtors is putting out. They don't want your broker negotiating with the buyer's broker at all. They want the buyer and the buyer's broker to negotiate their fee, and you, the seller, to negotiate your fee with your listing agent paying their broker. Now, as I said, most listing agents are going to suggest that you offer some type of commission to the buyer's agent. It might be a good idea. We don't know yet. My feeling is if the buyer is signing a legal document like this, they should be signing it being fully aware that a seller that they've never met, that they haven't viewed their property yet, that they haven't negotiated with, they wouldn't assume that you would pay their agent. Now, there's all kinds of stuff that go along with that for me that I have a problem with. And I feel like our industry is honestly relying on you, the seller, to pay buyer's agent commission. Now, I don't know how this is going to play out. My feeling is the buyers are going to push back somewhere and negotiate a lower fee. And I think that there's an opportunity for sellers to negotiate a lower fee. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I know that I want to make at least 1% commission when I list and sell a house. That's my minimum. And in California, here in San Diego, where I work, that's a healthy commission to list and sell a house. On the buy side, since I also do loans, I mostly want to help them with their loan, and I will additionally help them with the real estate. That's a powerful option for that buyer. They're going to be able to save thousands of dollars in fees and commissions. And you as a seller taking an offer from my client would potentially save thousands of dollars as well, because you're not going to have to negotiate any type of buyer compensation at all. You're just going to get a flat offer. It's going to be simple, and that's going to be a huge benefit with both buyers and sellers that work with me, no matter what side of the deal I'm on. The buyer is going to have a conversation with their agent, very similar, looking at a document like this to calculate how much their commission is going to be between the buyer and the buyer's agent. Now, why that's important to you, and it is not addressed here at all, is there is new language from CAR and NAR that says whatever the amount the buyer and buyer agent agree to as a fee, that is the maximum amount of money that you as a seller should pay. So if a buyer wanting your house hired their agent and they agreed to a 3% commission, you could be asked to pay a 3% commission. However, there's no language of you being required to pay that on here. Now, if that same buyer, same agent, they agreed to say 1%, and you worked with your listing agent who convinced you that it makes sense to offer something, let's say you offer 2%. If that buyer comes to you and they've only agreed to pay their agent 1%, that would be the only amount you would pay. So although you offered 2, the most you could pay that buyer's agent is 1. And that 2% is your money. You haven't agreed to it. It's not guaranteed. So you keep the other 1% for yourself. And that's how that works. Another part that's interesting about this document is it has compensation for how much you're going to pay your listing agent. And then it has compensation for how much you're going to pay your listing agent if they need to work with an unrepresented buyer. So CAR, producing a brand new document, believes that there's going to be buyers out there that are going to go unrepresented. And that's going to be for probably the main reason is just cost. They're not going to be excited about signing a legally binding document to pay their agent 1%, 2%, 3%, $10,000, $15,000. Average home price around here is $800,000. If they pay 2%, that's $16,000 that they're committing to, and they haven't even seen a house yet. That's a hard conversation to have. I'm not excited about it, but because of the way I'm set up, being a hybrid agent, a dual license agent, and being able to offer mortgages as well as real estate, my conversation is going to be completely different with that buyer. But they're going to ask you to pay. This sounds like, oh, there's an extra fee. Actually, this just lays it out a little different, because the original listing document had language that talked about how much your listing agent would be compensated if they also found the buyer. So that would work in the same respect as this document working with an unrepresented buyer. Your listing agent finds a buyer, brings them, they like the house, they place an offer, but the listing agent has a fiduciary duty to work for you. So they're going to work and produce the documents and get these clients through the purchase on your behalf, but they're not guiding them the same way they're guiding you. Now, let's say this said, I'm going to take an extra 1%. That's pretty normal, because generally you would pay, let's say you paid 3 and 3, 3 to your agent, 3 to the buyer's agent. And then on this particular topic where the agent said, oh, what if I bring the buyer? I'm only going to charge you 4%. So you're getting a 2% break if I find the buyer, or you're paying me my 3% plus 1% to process this deal on your behalf to get you to the closing line and get your property sold. That's how this is now set up. The third thing that they're talking about in this document is the extension of compensation. So the listing agreement ends and the property hasn't sold, but they give you a list of, say, 20, 30 people that have shown interest in your property, that came through the listing and inquired during the listing agreement. This states a time from the time that you guys severed your relationship to, say, 3-6 months later. In that new window, if you meet this buyer in the middle of that time and you end up selling your house to them, this document says that you would still owe your listing agent the amount of money that you agreed to pay them. So that's not new, it's just clarified here in the compensation. So the last one is seller compensation to a previous broker. What that means is, just like in the example I said, if you part ways with your listing agent and let's say you hire another one, that new agent meets a buyer that was on the list that your first agent gave you and you guys close the deal. This basically clarifies that you would still owe compensation to that previous broker. So what this basically does is it says to a new broker that you're hiring is, hey, these people are off limits. If they come through and place an offer, I won't be able to pay you for those. You basically have a list of people that your new broker, your new listing agent wouldn't earn a compensation on because the previous broker is owed that compensation. Some of the things that I think are really important, one is this thing is like 6 pages long. Like, they made it simple for all of us, apparently. It's very interesting that they've not mentioned broker to broker compensation at all, that they're not mentioning any type of compensation from seller to buyer. And then they are mentioning a fee to work with a unrepresented buyer. And the term unrepresented is key. They're expecting that buyers might do something different based on these new laws and these new rules that we have to follow. So it's all very interesting. It's changing in the next couple of weeks. The absolute deadline for this is meant to be August 17th, which is a Saturday for some reason. I don't know why that's the date, but it is. So if you're listing a property, if you're planning to start a home search, I would love to speak with you, offer my ideas and the ways that I believe that both of you, buyer and seller, can potentially save money if you work with me. I have solutions and strategies that I believe are very aggressive based on the new rules that I've now been given to work real estate deals. It's going to be tricky. You definitely will benefit from having a good agent. We're all different in how we do things. I suggest buy or sell side, at least try and interview 2 or 3 agents to make sure that you click, that you guys communicate well, and that those agents have good strategies and have a mindset that want to get you what you want while saving you as much money as possible. Talk to you soon.